A lot of the time we'll be spending in this course will be devoted to reports. Google organizes the data that it's collecting about our site into reports and organizes reports by theme. So we can find reports that summarize our web traffic, where our visitors come from, another on content, etc. These reports are really the essence of Google Analytics. It's what makes using it so valuable. As we go through this course, we'll be looking at each of these reports in a detailed manner. We'll discuss how to use each one, what it's good for, and ways in which you can leverage it to understand your business and set and meet business goals. But first, why don't we discuss the types of reports that you'll run into in Google Analytics? Once we log into Google Analytics, head on over to the reporting screen. You can find reporting in the menu at the top. You'll know you're in the reporting section if reporting in the top menu is highlighted blue. And it's the reporting section that's going to show us all the data related to this account in this view. In the center of the screen, you'll notice that we already have some data present. For example, I've logged us into an active analytics account. And we won't discuss what all the data means at this point, but as we run through the different reports, this graph will change. What we're here to look at now is the menu to the left-hand side of the screen. Under the dashboard and shortcuts options, you'll see that we have intelligence events and real-time. But below that is the core categories of our reporting, and they are audience, acquisition, behavior, and conversions. Now, if we click on one of these sections, we can see all the reports that are available within the section. So I'll click on audience first. We can look at active users, demographics, interests, location and language, behavior, technology, etc. Even some of these options allow us to get more specific. For example, if I click on demographics, you'll see it opens up several more reporting options that have to do with demographics. For instance, age and gender. And these are our reports. So let's talk about the categories so you can learn a little bit about how Google groups things. Audience is the first one. What these reports do is give us insight into the characteristics of our audience. It tells us things like who they are, where they're from, what languages they speak, and what types of devices they're using. This is designed to get us to learn more about our customers and potential customers. And the next report group is acquisition. This report group gives us information about how we acquire viewers on our website. It shows us not only where they're coming from, but also we can learn about their behavior on our site after they get to it. We'll also be able to see how they navigated the site before they made a purchase or converted in some other way, meaning completed a task that we wanted them to complete, like download an ebook. After that is behavior reports. The behavior report group tells us how our users are interacting with our website and the content on our website. And then last are conversion reports. And this shows us how all of our channels are functioning together to drive sales and goals. As I mentioned earlier, if we open up each report group, we'll find a list of reports. And for instance, if we open up acquisitions, you'll see there are AdWords reports and SEO reports. And if we open up AdWords, there are several types of these reports, including campaigns, tree maps, and keywords. This will give us AdWords information if you've linked your AdWords account to Analytics. This is something that I highly recommend you do, and we'll go through this a bit later on. The Search Engine Optimization Report is where Google provides information about web searches that have returned results that link to your site. This is something we'll have to configure. The social reports will help us understand the effectiveness of our social campaigns. There's really a ton of good information here, which will be fun to share with you. And then last is the conversions reports. And this allows us to examine our goals. And these are e-commerce reports. We can look at this if we're using a store on our website. Then there's multi-channel funnels and attribution, which we'll discuss later on as well. It's not necessary to feel the need to memorize all these reports or where they are right now. As I said, we'll discuss them all in depth later on. I just wanted to familiarize you with the report types so you could get a sense of how stuff is grouped together. Google does a pretty good job of organizing things. But there is a ton of information, so I understand if it seems a little bit overwhelming at first. But don't worry, we'll take each of them one by one. But before we do that, I want to discuss sources a little bit. Sources are instrumental in how we look at data. So we're logged into a more mature analytics account, and I've navigated over to the channel report. For this exercise, it's not important to know where that is or how to get to it. It's also not important to know how to navigate the interface. We'll go over all of that later on too. But in this video, we're just focusing on sources. So I'm on the channel report, and if we scroll down, you'll see I've pre-selected the sources label. On the left-hand side, there is our source list. Now, source is where our users are coming from. For instance, the first source with the highest traffic is coming from Google. Everyone that visits our site comes from somewhere. Even if they've come to our site directly when they opened up their browser, that is still coming from somewhere. And where they come from and how they behave once they arrive can tell us a bunch of cool information. The source is important to know because as we start to look at the data closely, everything starts with where our users are coming from. And every source denotes a different type of user. Think about it. Someone who comes from Google means that they've entered something having to do with our website into a Google search query. And someone who came directly is someone who already knows about our business. With both examples, the way we look at how they navigate our site is important because of where they came from. For instance, if they came from Google, did they find what they were looking for? Did they stay on the page or did they leave quickly? If you take a look at the columns, you can see things like sessions. How many unique stops at our site happened during the time period we've chosen? The average duration of their stay on our page or website. What the bounce rate is. Remember, bounce rate is the percentage of times a user will leave our site without visiting a second page. And these numbers vary a bit by source. For instance, the bounce rate from people who came from the store or from suproctech.com have a lower bounce rate than people coming from Google. There are also differences in pages visited per session and average stay on the page. Sources are important because we want to understand what each user is looking for based on where they came from. Later on, when we're looking at demographic reports and behavior, it's always best to view those reports with sources in mind. Sources is the context.